Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our tactical breakdown series, a show in which we look at players in a statistical and analytical way with the help of some expert insight. And today we are looking at Kieran Trippier. Now, Kieran Trippier has been linked with a move to Arsenal significantly over the latter stages of this window, last couple of weeks or so, as Arsenal edge towards the end of their opportunity to bring in any players. Trippier has been revealed to be a possible option in the right-back area as Hector Bellerin continues to push for a move, and a possible swap deal involving Trippier and Bellerin has been credited in a number of sources. And so it's therefore important to look at Kieran Trippier and to see whether or not he is in fact a good option for the Gunners. Now, before we get into today's show, please make sure you do drop a like on today's video, subscribe to the channel if you are somehow new around here, and do turn those notifications on so you never miss a show. And we're going to kick off with learning a bit about Kieran Trippier from our expert insight. With these shows, every time we always get the expert's view, because if I don't necessarily know loads about a player, it would be a bit naive of me to try and talk about him. So I have enlisted the help of John Driscoll, who is a Sky Sports and La Liga commentator, and also very much involved in the sphere of Spanish football, talking with Terry Gibson on La Liga Weekly, which you can check out in the description, and of course on social media. And he's also the author of the 50 Football's Most Influential Players, which you can also find in the description as well. So without further ado, John, Kieran Trippier, take it away.
So Kieran Trippier, I think in the end I'm going to say it comes down to price, as it so often does with transfers. I like him, really rate him as a player. And I think we need to say he's been a big success in Spain. Gone to Atletico, very few English players have been over to Spain and played. He's adapted really well. He's gone to play for Simeone, who's a very harsh judge of a player, and won La Liga. And he was a key part of that, played a really good role as a right back or right wing back. Missed the 10 games. That was down to the transfer, the ban because of the betting, which in my view, it was harshly dealt with. I think it's the law on that. I think the betting market is the issue rather than a guy telling his mates that he's moving. So, you know, I certainly don't hold anything against him for that. Neither did Atleti. He was back in the team, played 28 La Liga games. They won the league. Tough battle, tough season. But they did really well. So definite success in Spain. Now, he's rated by Simeone, rated by Southgate as well. And that's ahead of more physical prospects. So you look at James, you look at Walker and Trent. At times, Southgate picked Trippier for his know-how above those guys for their physicality. I've seen him play a few times, Kieran Trippier, and he's a wise player. In a way, a player who's quite hard to quantify in terms of the stats, because indirect stats is not as good as some of the others, but there is that X factor in a defender that's hard to put your finger on. And that, I think, is probably why Arsenal are interested, because Arsenal, I mean, you guys watch Arsenal more regularly than I do, but looking as an outsider, I see a lack of experience and know-how in that Arsenal defence very many times. And so I can see why they'd want Trippier. Good player, good brain on him, great experience, good player. You know, good signing. Comes down to the price again. Ex-Spurs. Now, there might be an emotional connection, might put more pressure on him, of course, being an ex-Spurs player. He might get more grief earlier if it doesn't work out for him in the short term. Or you could look at it and say, you know, being an ex-Spurs player is great because they win trophies. Or is it 150, 116 trophies won by ex-Spurs players since Spurs have last won a trophy. And Trippier is one of those, of course, with his La Liga trophy. So, you know, you'll find bigger players. You'll find faster players. You'll find more physical players than Kieran Trippier. His age, is that a problem? He's 30. He'll be 31 in September. They paid 20 million for him. It's quite a lot of money. So, you know, they won't be giving him away cheap. I'm surprised they're selling him, if I'm honest, because they're not blessed with another right back. Llorente played there, but Llorente is an attacking midfield player. So he filled in when Trippier wasn't available. So, good player. If you want that know-how, you're getting a player who's more experienced, even more worldly wise than when he left the Premier League to go and play in La Liga. If that's what you want, then Trippier is a good signing. The caveat, as I said at the beginning, and I'll say at the end, just a question of how much you have to pay.
And it is a big question because we don't ultimately know whether or not Atletico Madrid would want a significant figure on top of, say, a swap deal with Hector Bellerin. But a massive thank you to John. You can check him out on Twitter at Driscoll FC, and you can find him working with Terry Gibson on La Liga Weekly, covering all the ins and outs of the ongoings of Spanish football every single week. So please make sure it's a fantastic listen, and you're missing out if you're not tuning in. But we need to go into a little bit more depth and detail about Kieran Trippier. So, of course, Atletico Madrid player, 30 years of age, turns 31 next month. 5 for 8. Contract expires in 2023 with 2 years left on his deal. It would require a significant fee still to get him, unless that £30 million reported figure can be brought down with the inclusion of Hector Bellerin. €60 million buyout clause in his current contract, but I don't think that you'd have to pay close to that. In terms of how he got on last season, 6 assists in 28 games. Of course, he was missing for a few of them because of the betting ban that he was involved in, as John said, quite harshly treated during that scenario if you do some research into it. And he didn't suffer with any injuries that cost him any games at all during the season as well. So that's a positive side too. But we're going to go into the statistics and see how he compares. Now, these are going to be the league stats from the 2020-21 season in their league games, of course, averaged across the 90 minutes, unless it says otherwise. And we're going to be comparing Trippier to Bellerin, Max Aarons, and Emerson of now Barcelona, and previously, of course, of Real Betis during that season. And so therefore you can see from their heat maps, all right backs all like to get forward in the opposition's half, but of those 4, Bellerin does not get ahead the most, and that is a concern for me. And one of the biggest reasons why we need to upgrade on that right back position is because of how kind of restricted Bellerin's play can be sometimes. So if you look at Kieran Trippier, you look at Aarons, you look at Emerson, all of them push up into that final defensive third of the pitch to get those key crosses into the box, something that will become very apparent in a second. Looking at how they defend, Trippier does very well across these stats. The second highest number of defensive duels behind Emerson was 7.31, Emerson 8.59, but he is the most successful bar Max Aarons with 60.7% success. So you got best of both worlds in terms of frequency and success rate of winning those defensive duels. When it comes to aerial duels, despite being only 5 for 8, he has one of the best success rates in his aerial duels, winning 62.7%, better than Emerson, a much taller player than him. But he only gets involved with 2.56, of the slightly less than Emerson and Bellerin, but not as low, only ever so slightly, 0.02, as low as Max Aarons in this area. In terms of loose ball duels, unsurprisingly playing for Diego Simeone, a full tilt, full-time manager. 3.14 loose ball duels with a 53.3% success rate, the highest in both of those departments. Unsurprising. Just unwilling to not back out of a challenge. And that is something that Arsenal would certainly need. The leadership, the example being set in those statistics by Trippier. Interceptions comes out quite well too. Second highest, 4.96 interceptions per game, just below that of Emerson, 4.7 for Bellerin, 3.49 for Max Aarons. In terms of losses, does lose the ball a fair amount, 9.64 times, which is in around the same as that of Aarons and Emerson. Bellerin not losing it as much. But what's interesting about this is Trippier loses it the least percentage-wise in his own half. Everyone else on our list tends to lose the ball more when they do lose it in their own half in comparison to the England international. In terms of recoveries, though, comes out really well. 9.09 recoveries, 32% of those happening in the opposition half. Only person that gets close to him is Emerson, with only 27% of those happening in the opposition's half. Really good to kind of turn over the play, counter-attack, hit the team when they're least expecting it. Moving into the passing statistics, this is where he falls down in terms of just raw accuracy, 81.7% passing accuracy, with Emerson ever so slightly higher, Bellerin and Aarons coming out very kindly at 84.4, but it's a very, very close between the 4 of them. Passes into the final third, he is trying to pass the ball as much as he can and get forward. He's progressive. He wants to push the team up the pitch. He's a passing fullback. He's not a dribbler, and you'll see those reflected in the stats in a second. 6.22 passes into the final third is highest by far, but he does have the lowest accuracy of those passes, 63.2% of those passes reaching their target, compared to someone like Bellerin, who's more reserved, and maybe that's down, maybe his accuracy is down to the fact that he's not passing as frequently forwards. 3.41 passes into the final third, but an 81.1% accuracy. Looking at passes into the penalty area, though, he is very good at this. Highest pass frequency into the penalty area, 4.92 passes with a 54.9% accuracy, higher than anyone else in our comparison chart. And it's a similar story with crosses, 2.8 crosses, not as high, ever so slightly lower than that of Aarons and Emerson, but crucially, more of his crosses meet the target. 42.7% of them, in fact, do meet their target. Touches in the penalty area. Importantly, talking about that area of the pitch, it's really key that we make sure that we've got players that, can get in the box. However, and this is a big however, whilst Trippier comes out here at 0.44, I have a theory as to why. One of the key things being is that the associative right winger does kind of more of the work inside the box. Trippier prefers to be create the triangles, the 1-2s, run in behind, get the ball in the box, rather than dribbling it inside the box. He prefers to get the ball in the box earlier. And I have a theory that what we may have seen from the heat map earlier on is that the associative right winger pushes more inside, with Trippier moving more outside, and so therefore not getting in the box. And maybe that is a bit of a theory in regards to how that would affect Nicolas Pepe play by forcing him more inside, with Trippier pushing further outside, which actually could be very beneficial for our Ivorian dribbler. And I'd definitely be interested to see those two link up. And you can see this again in terms of dribbles. He's not the dribbling type. 0.68 dribbles per game, far, far lower than an Aarons or an Emerson or a Bellerin. And it's because he prefers a passing style of play. 1-2s, touch and go, push forwards, running ahead, find those triangles. That's more of his game. He's not going to be the guy to take on your left fullback. He's going to be the guy to pass it around him. And that suits Arsenal's style pretty well. I mean, if you look at the list as well, the other lowest passing factor on the list is Bellerin at 1.65. So he's all about the passes, less about the dribbling, and I'm fine with that. And I like the link-up play. That's something that we need to use with our build-up and how we're looking to play as well. Moving finally into shots, because he doesn't get into the box, he doesn't take shots. 2 shots all of last season. 50% of them hit the target, just one of them, and it was from outside the box. Whereas you look at the likes of Aarons, much prefers to take more shots. In fact, he's more than 10 times the amount of shots in comparison to Trippier. Bellerin as well takes a few more shots. Emerson only with 9. Not part of his game. He's a creative fullback. He's not your goal-scoring fullback. He's not your Hakimi. He's more of a creator than a drive into the box type. And I'm fine with that, because at the moment, at the end of the day, I want to see them getting those balls into the box, into play with the wide areas, and utilising our wingers at best as feasibly possible. And that is all of the information that we've got for you regarding Kieran Trippier. I like him. I like him a lot. I think that he really could improve Arsenal's backline if they can somehow get a deal for him over the line before the end of the window. And there is genuine interest from the club about the player. And with Hector Bellerin's future still so uncertain, I think it'd be a really good move for the club. 2-year +1 contract, then that would suit us down to the ground. You move him into that kind of position on the field where he's now kind of a leader in that back four. And when you've got a 23-year-old in White, 23-year-old in Gabriel, 24-year-old in Tierney, bringing a 31-year-old in Trippier in, that's not declined, by the way. Like, a lot of people kind of associate the 30-plus players with players that are in the decline. He's not. He's continually improving and developing and still getting better despite his age, and being picked over, as John Driscoll said, over Reece James, over Trent, over Walker. He is trusted by his coaches to be the right back for both England and for Atletico Madrid, and you can see why with his quality. If you're signing a player with the age of 30 and over, they have to be a starter. No more depth players, no more players coming in just for the pure experience. Experience is a big factor with this, but you need the quality in association with it, and Trippier brings that to the table. So that's why I'm so keen on him. I think the stats show that. I think the expert insight show that. It's really important that we bring someone in that area. And I'm really excited to see what can ultimately happen with Kieran Trippier. Let's get some of your thoughts and your feelings in the chat box. Tono says, Tom, heard about that Atletico would only accept Arsenal's bid if it matched their release clause. Typically, you hear things coming out from Spain quite like that. They did it a lot with other players, and that doesn't turn out to be the case. If Arsenal can negotiate a deal with Bellerin involved, I'm sure that would bring down the price. But it does definitely depend on, if you're going to say that they're not going to accept anything less than 50 million, you're not going to pay that for a 30 to 31-year-old. It makes no sense. I would go as high as 30. I think that's as max I would go to. I think you can get 2 to 3 good seasons for 30 million, which you can then, it's not necessarily you're going to get that money back. You're not. But we've got a lot of young players that we've invested in. We've brought the average age of the team really far down. And hopefully now we don't need to be too concerned about the whole sell-on value side of things, because we've got loads of young players, absolutely loads of young players in the team. So it's not really a concern for me at this stage in time. Hugh says more of a Trent Alexander-Arnold than a Robertson style of fullback. He loves his crosses. That's definitely for sure. Noah says, this is why these shows are great. Thanks, mate. I wasn't sold on Trippier before, but now I wouldn't mind him. My preferred right back is still Emerson, but now my second pick is definitely Trippier. Brings that experience. Hey, Emerson is a great pick as well, and I would certainly be open to the idea of bringing him in as a more. I think he's riskier to bring in than Trippier. Trippier gives you, I think, more of a guaranteed payback immediately, whereas Emerson less so. But there's that potential there, and he does give you the sell-on value if that is what you are asking for. Alex said this could be a brilliant strategy to finally get some refereeing decisions going our way. Just having more English players could result in several extra points per season. I'm not one to comment. I'm not one to comment, Noah, on stuff like on Alex, on stuff like that. So, if that's the theory, that's your theory. You're entitled to it. Jaden says, if we can't get him, Fabian Sentonze from Metz is the cheap option in the last minutes of the window. Abe says, would definitely take Trippier as long as a younger right back is signed next summer. Kay Lopez says, what about Luke Ayling as a possible cheaper option? Former Arsenal player, Luke Ayling, of course. Don't know how much Leeds would want for him, but he has impressed since making the step up to the Premier League, and not a bad shout whatsoever. MR says, Tom, I reckon we are going to get rid of Bellerin, but I think that we will not sign anyone else in that position. Paul says, sign this lad, and I'm fairly happy with the transfer window. Might forgive the lack of a central midfielder. It is going to be an interesting end to the window, that is for sure. And make sure you keep your eyes peeled to the Gooner Talk as we continue to give you up-to-date info on the season's transfer dealings and beyond into the season, of course, and throughout that too. You'll be able to join us for the next show, probably late this evening, to react to Arsenal's result against Chelsea, whatever that may be. Maybe it will spark Arsenal's transfer window at the end into life a little bit more. We will see. But it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you guys as always. Please do drop a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new around here with those notifications turned on so you never miss a show. Join up as a member to help support the channel as well. You can find us at the Gooner Talk TV on Twitter and at Tom Canton Media too. And you can find John Driscoll at Driscoll FC, who is very kind to help us out with today's video as well. See you soon, guys. Have a fantastic day. And as always, up the Arsenal.